and relieve yourselves at some point during the day. And that was probably the most mortifying and humiliating part of our job as young girls.
I remember being in the melon, the algodón. We were hoeing cotton, we were chopping cotton, and we were just as excited as could be because there was an airplane flying by. And so you're spraying us. And you go like this, right? Yeah. And nobody told us to leave the field, and we didn't know any better. And I remember Daddy would damn everybody, you know. He couldn't understand the humiliation, but we were as excited as could be because the plane was coming so close to us, and he was missing. But it was spraying us. It was spraying the field, and we were right there. And it wasn't spraying the field next door. No, it was spraying the field we were working on.
The fields can be dangerous places, particularly with pesticides. And so children were left in cars. Again, not out of cruelty or because people were abusing their children, but because there was no other place to leave them.
I remember immigration coming into the fields, and we would on purpose hide and run just to have them chase after us or come after us. And most of the time they never caught us. But I remember those experiences, and I never understood why they were coming in to check. We were all legal, but at the same time, I would see some of my friends being put in cars and trucks and hauled away.
I remember having to leave home, having to live in chicken coops, barns. No, it was dirt floors. But my mother always, I remember that she would take all the weeds out, and she would then water the dirt and pack it in.
Some people lived on the banks of rivers, and some people lived in chicken coops. People lived in whatever housing the either company or farmer that they worked for provided. There was no other housing. And as some people who had cars lived in their cars.
We were 8 of us at that time, and we were all housed in one room. It was a 3-story dorm, one room for each family. And we cooked there, we ate there, we slept there. And there was only one, I remember just one bathroom, one shower stall for everybody. And there was hundreds of us working in Cherries that year, hundreds of us. And there was 2 toilets there for hundreds of us. And so that, you know, when you look at racism and discrimination, if that isn't a result of it, I don't know what is. And we were all treated like cattle.
We used to have a one little room shack that we'd go, and I remember you could see between the boards, and it was cold and it was flaming. And my dad, I remember the cardboard and building those little beds, which were like tables. I remember the first night, the next morning, I was like, because I didn't change it. Oh my God, I had ticks. I guess all over during the night, but I had them all over. I mean, I had ronchas all over.
The irony of the whole situation, this is not speaking to the poverty issue, but they sprayed the fields, but they didn't spray your room. So the ticks were all over you.
A lot of people say, no, pues, eso, that was back then, you know, ahora they do have that. But no, I mean, it's still going on. And I mean, we still have the outdoor plumbing. You know, we still have to share 2 showers.
During the experience of migrating, a lot of it didn't necessarily, you transferred your identity, but you went to school somewhere else up in the northern part of the U.S. and they couldn't relate.
In school, the remarks were hardly covert about it's March and here are all these dirty little Mexican kids and now we have to deal with them. Although that certainly wasn't all teachers, but those remarks were present. Those remarks were also present sometimes from the parents of other children in the school where we met.
When I was in junior high and high school, it was very difficult to enter in December, or to school in December. two things. One was he had to make up the work. You were behind. Secondly, the embarrassment of the stigma of being a migrant. And it was, I perceived it as being not acceptable to people, that kind of work.
They were always making fun of the way you spoke, the way you dressed, the way you ate your tacos and your lunch in the cafeteria. You'd hide behind somebody else because you didn't want to. Everybody had ham and cheese sandwiches. We had tacos de frijoles.
I must have been embarrassed to say tacos. That I said, I'll work in the cafeteria, Mom. Don't worry about lunch for me. I remember the experience that now I think back, how did I do it? There was a big crate, and I was just a little girl, and I had to wash those pants with bleach, up to my elbows.
Reading my fourth grade report card from Michigan, and this teacher, writes down an essay for my parents to kind of telling them, how I had done that 6 weeks or whatever it was, and what I needed to work on, and so sends it home. She was being real helpful. But, first of all, my parents didn't read English, so it didn't mean anything. And secondly, her assessment of me was a white, middle-class, northern U.S., woman. And so throwing out labels of, well, he needs to work on his self-esteem and he needs to work, with not understanding the reality that I was the one with the responsibility to check the vehicle before we took on this journey. And that's a huge responsibility. And so the tools and the measurement that she was using was a totally different one, to assess the self-esteem and the knowledge.
I couldn't reconcile the reality that we lived with what little they told us in school about Mexicans, who were always the enemy and who were in some form or another not citizens or not good enough or not American. We weren't American. I kept thinking, how are we not American? We're born in Texas. My family's been there for generations.
All of the kids in that basement room, which was a migrant room, were from the camp de los trabajadores. Y todos nos metían ahí, and we all did school there with about 2 teachers, I think, and we never went to the second floor. The only time we went to the first floor was to go eat lunch. So that the migrant kids never saw where the white kids went to school or where the local kids went to school. Just incredible symbolism. You go down, that's where you are.
When we moved into San Antonio, which is where I graduated from high school, during the period that we were going to school there was a de facto segregation where all of the Mexicans were being taught how to work with our hands. All the girls were secretaries, all the boys were carpenters or mechanics. And so we went to that school, and so I graduated from Fox Tech High School, and so there we were all Mexicans there. And so in that we weren't, I didn't feel that somebody was disparaging me because of my color. In fact, the fact is that because I was Mexican, I was given a certain track.
Counsel to be a carpenter. I mean, you have great skills. When I'm sort of a lousy with my hands, I didn't know what to do with them.
Yeah.
But anyway, that was what my counselor said.
I finished high school, and I did go to a technical school, and I did become the carpenter. And after a couple of, laying a couple of roofs in 100+ degree weather, and my brothers in doing a 4-year college, I said, this isn't it. There's much to life. There's much more to life.
It was language issues for me, the self-concept, not wanting to stand up in front of a group because they were always making fun of the way you spoke.
You couldn't speak your own language because, and I remember this later on, not necessarily in elementary school, but they would mark you if the teacher would caught you speaking Spanish. You would have to wear this chalk, this white chalk, right here, all day long.
You can speak Spanish even. I was nailed under a tree for speaking Spanish and not by a teacher, but an